Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Tuesday night college football call-in show. We're going to be live for the next hour, and Will and I are going to be chopping it up. We're going to take your calls on anything. You want to talk Georgia Tech? We do really have a lot of Georgia Tech fans. You want to talk LSU? I know some of the LSU people have messaged me potentially about being able to call in. This is college football content, and as the calls roll in, we will take the answers, or we'll take the questions. We'll answer kind of how we feel, have some good dialogue. And also, Will and I are going to touch on a few topics here tonight as well, including, Will, what I just sent you in the Twitter group, probably about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, which is interesting comments from Peyton Thorne. That and more on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
Welcome in, everybody. My name is Bryce Coon alongside Will Manis as we get ready for our Tuesday night call-in show. Will, this is it's something that we wanted to do, and we're going to do. We're going to try to do this every single Tuesday night, same time as on Mondays and Wednesdays, where we let the people speak, and they can talk on anything that they want, and it will be interesting. Jonesy says, "Y'all know my feelings. Y'all can call in." If you're in the Discord, you kind of know what he's referring to. Austin says Michael Harris home run. I'm guessing he just hit a home run. You're muted, by the way. I know, brutal way to start off the show.
Braves up 4-0 on the Mets right now.
Yeah, honestly, I know this isn't a baseball show, but you could not ask for a better start to this game for Atlanta right now. He said, so it's alive. And then Dr. Bob talking to my mother for her birthday right now. Shout out Dr. Bob's mom. And we'll call in afterwards. Gavin says the MLB is dead. Call in the show. There it is right there. We can get your calls in where, hey, you can talk about whatever you'd like. And we'll take your call. We'll talk to you, whether it's Georgia Tech, whether it's anything in between. But, Will, before we kind of I'm opening the phone lines now. Wanted to get your thoughts, and we'll stop if we go too far into it. Your thoughts on this situation, I guess, with Peyton Thorne responding to the comments of Hugh Freeze and pretty much saying he doesn't really put a lot of stock into it, and also adds that he doesn't have he's not too terribly upset at his decision making. Your thoughts on that? Because it was interesting.
Yeah, so I'm just now reading it because you sent it to me. I agree with him. You know, I think there's a lot of people right now, Auburn fans, including me, especially when I watch the games, saying a lot of things and just becoming unhinged emotionally. But I think if you go back and look at it, you know, he has a point. But this just continues to look worse and worse for Auburn. I mean, now the perception is your quarterback and your head coach are sparring publicly in the media, which is never a good thing. I don't know. I went ad nauseum about how I felt about Auburn's offense last night. So if you missed that and you want to hear more, go listen to last night's show. Go watch it at some point. I don't know. I feel like if I repeat it, I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. It's frustrating.
It's just a. Why don't I grab water? Why do I sound like I'm about to die here? It's a weird look in terms of handling the media. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you know, for people who don't know, like, you have SIDs, and also some schools have essentially, whether it's a communications professor or someone that kind of helps players who may or not be comfortable speaking in front of people. I mean, I don't think Peyton Thorne's a guy that is not comfortable speaking in front of people, but he's had some weird answers in general of just like different stuff. Kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
I kind of give a pass to college players, although now I've seen a lot of people saying this, like they're getting paid, they should be held accountable, which they should, and they should be held accountable even if they weren't getting paid. But at the same time, it's like before now, they really, I don't think, had the time or necessarily the means to get the media training that we see them get when they go to the NFL or beyond whatever they do after college football.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I'm still at the point where I'm giving a pass, to players a little bit. It's like, oh, why would you say that? It's not a smart thing to say. And honestly, they don't have a ton of experience, even though he's been a starting quarterback in college for a long time. He still doesn't have all that much experience talking to the media, whereas Hugh Freeze has a ton and continues to put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah. Weird stuff. Kind of just,
God,
I think,
dude, do not read the
interesting.
comments. Do not
Uh,
read.
yeah, I'm not gonna read all the comments. Gavin says it's Charmin Ultra Soft. I'm gonna have to go get some water. I'm sounding like I just got done smoking a pack of Pall Malls or something. I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah. Donate now to get Bryce a razor. Yeah, it's something. It's something. Gavin says he is from the north, and then we're not going to ask more comments there. It's going to be interesting. I think that Auburn this weekend is going to be very telling of what they can do and where they could go in terms of season. If you lose this game, going to be interesting. It's going to
Well,
be,
it would be really Hugh Freeze esque for Auburn to win this weekend,
yeah,
which they might, because we don't know if Oklahoma can put up any points. They're playing their backup quarterback, which is usually not a good thing for Auburn. For whatever reason, backup quarterbacks seem to feast on Auburn, and this year with the way the secondary is, I can't even think of their backup quarterback's name for Oklahoma, but he'll probably have a big day, and it'll be a long afternoon for Auburn.
yeah. Hugh Freeze is not been good in games where they've been like favored. Well, I'm about
Yeah,
to die
it was
like right here on the show. Be
I
right back.
read a tweet earlier. We'll keep talking about Auburn. Hugh Freeze is 14. Well, no, I'm gonna have to pull it up and read it. But Hugh Freeze has been favored in 14 of his last 20 games as a head coach, no matter where he's been between Auburn and Liberty, and he's lost more games than he's won. So the fact that he came out the other night and said that uh, Auburn Auburn could play Arkansas 10 more times and Auburn would beat them, not 9 out of 10 times. You can't say that if you don't have a track record that backs that up. And if you're under 500,
You hear that, right?
phone's ringing. Here we go.
Here we go. All right, welcome in Tuesday night Crowded Booth, opening a hotline. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Austin from Atlanta. I'll keep it short.
What you got for us?
Oh, hold on. I need to pause the show. I'm getting an echo. Here we go.
Much
Yeah,
appreciated.
going off of what Will said, the playing 9 times is a ridiculous comment when you haven't even proven you lost to Cal. I think Arkansas is better than Cal. And as well, his comment about, oh, well, we need a quarterback who can come in and take care of the ball. Well, you had all offseason to get a portal quarterback, and you decided not to. So throwing Peyton under the bus there is a little, I don't know, beneath him, but maybe not. I guess we don't know if Freeze is such a great guy like I'm gonna think he is.
No, it's it's just, I think bottom line, just a weird way of how he's handled the media this season. And two, it'll be interesting as well if they keep losing. What are those press conferences like?
I mean, yeah, and he does the thing that they tell you not to do, where when you win, you take all the credit, and then when you lose, you blame somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know. If I was an Auburn fan, I'd be quite concerned, and I think they probably are.
Austin, you're a Georgia fan. How you feel about this weekend?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have much to go off of other than the Clemson game, and we know they don't have near the offense that Alabama has. We played that game very well. It was close at half, which was a little concerning, but I do respect Clemson's defense. The game against Kentucky, I don't know if that was just a stinker. I don't know if that's Brock Vandergrift and Devon James Johnson know our whole entire playbook and know our whole team. I have no idea what to make of any of it. It was very concerning to see us not be able to at least move the ball. I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown, but I think we only scored like one, so not a good look.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Gonna be interesting. Austin,
I'm hoping that I want to, I'm trying to tell myself good things like, oh, we're looking ahead and we got caught slipping. But man, we're gonna we'll have our answer on Saturday. We'll know.
well, and the thing is, I mean, the expansion of this playoff. I've said I don't think Georgia, goes undefeated this season, but I do think they're a very good football team. You've got 3 ridiculous road games. Obviously, this is kind of the first.
I don't think we're gonna go undefeated. We're losing one of those games this year. It just depends on which one.
And Austin, you got to play Tennessee at home. So, I mean, I know it's at home. That's gonna make a big difference. But the Vols look pretty good.
Nah, they ain't played anybody yet.
I love it. They hadn't played at least in offense, I guess we could say, yeah. But no, Austin, appreciate you calling in.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
So Austin kind of talks about right there. We'll pick that up. We're gonna have Palmer on the show tomorrow, talking about this game. Well, I mean, this is obviously a big magnitude in terms of, I remember when LSU Alabama played, a couple times in the 2010s. It was like this is the game of the century type of feel.
Yeah.
This one isn't because both teams can still make the playoffs. I mean, Alabama could go beat Georgia 56-20, and Georgia still can make the playoff, and vice versa.
Yeah.
What's your vibes on this game? Because we'll know tomorrow night because we're gonna make our picks, and I guess we'll hold off on that thought.
Yeah.
All right, we're going back to the phone line here. Make sure that you state your name and where you're from. Thanks so much for calling in. You're on the Crowded Booth. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Matt from South Circle, Georgia. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing fantastic, Matt. Thanks so much for calling in.
Hey, I'd say this is not so much a prediction or guess, but how many teams do you think in the top 10 after conference championships are going to be undefeated going into the playoff?
Ooh. So essentially heading into the playoff committee decision, how many teams are going to be undefeated?
Correct. After conference championships.
That's a good question.
What teams could you see? Do you think? I would say personally that everyone is going to have at least one loss, but there could be potentially one team that could have or could be undefeated, but who that is, I could not say. But I wanted to get you and Will's guess or prediction on that.
Ohio State might be my best guess right now.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Ohio State might be the best guess. I will tell you this: if the SEC champion is undefeated, that's going to be crazy. That's going to be nuts. We know the ACC well, and look, let's be honest, Matt. I mean, if Miami were to run the table, they could be there too. But I think Ohio State's probably the most likely candidate. Anyone that you had in mind, Will?
I was thinking Texas. I mean, they do have to play Georgia, but it's at home. Oklahoma, from what I've seen from them offensively, I don't know that they could beat Texas. But other than that, I mean, Texas, they have a relatively light SEC schedule. We talked last night about how chaotic the ACC is, so I'm not. I don't
Who
know
will say? Because I can only hear you, Bryce. I know Will.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to remember that. Will is going with. He's saying maybe Texas. Texas does have to play Georgia, but if they win that one, the rest of their schedule doesn't look as crazy as it might have had in the preseason. So Will's going to kind of go Texas, and I think Will and I both maybe go option one might be Ohio State with the way the Big Ten is shaping up. Any thoughts on those two teams, or is there another team you're thinking about?
No, I kind of agree with you, bro. I think Ohio State probably could shape up to be an undefeated team going into playoffs because, honestly, in the Big Ten, besides Ohio State right now, there's no team that's really setting themselves apart. I mean, Penn State maybe. I can't think off the top of my head. They don't have divisions in the Big Ten anymore, do they? It's just the top 2 teams, correct?
No
top
divisions.
2 teams. Yeah, top 2 teams. There's no division
I,
but Power 4 football, I believe now.
yeah. So honestly, unless Penn State can step up, I agree with you, Bryce. I think Ohio State does have the best chance to go undefeated into the playoffs.
Dr. Bob comments, he goes, Ohio State does have a little trip to Eugene, Oregon on October 12th. They also go to Happy Valley on November 2nd. Well, Texas might be the most likely option then, in terms of paper. When you look at the rest of their schedule, that'll be interesting. But Matt, that's a good question. I want to follow up this with Matt, and then we're gonna close the call, and then Will and I will discuss. How many teams do you think out of the ACC get in? Because I think that's going to be an emerging topic of conversation. We talked a little bit about last night. What's the deal with the ACC? What are your thoughts on that? How many teams do you think can make it in from that conference?
I'm going to say just Clemson. I know people are really high on Miami right now. I still am not confident in Miami. I think it could shape up to be a Clemson, Miami, and Charlottesville. But I'm going to say Miami could drop the ball against a team or two this year. But if I'm being honest, I think Clemson may be the only team in the ACC being in the playoffs this year. Is this a prediction? I could be completely wrong, but I'm just going to go with Clemson just being the only team in the ACC in the playoffs.
I got you, Matt. We appreciate you calling, brother.
Yep. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
I think that's interesting, Will. We can kind of talk about that here for a second. I mean, it's definitely when you look at the ACC, the strength of schedule argument is going to come up for the runner-up in the conference title game. That's yeah, and Matt did misspeak. I wasn't going to say anything, but Jones is here. Matt said they're playing in Charlottesville. They're playing in Charlotte, but it's okay. It's okay. But Will, kind of your thoughts on that, because I mean, it would take like a bad loss. Let's say that Miami is 11-1 going into the ACC title game. Clemson's 11-1. You have two 11-1 teams go in. We know the ACC title winner is going to get in. Does an 11-2 Miami team get in if there's a bad loss? I mean, I think that's going, regardless, people sit here in September and say it. I do believe that that's going to be a topic of conversation, is that strength schedule.
Yeah, I think they both get in. It depends on what the committee does. I mean, we haven't seen the committee have to make a decision about a conference title game. How much are you going to punish somebody? Because I do know this: if they were both 11-1, they definitely both make it. And that's the expanded playoff is the end of the conference championship game era. We just haven't seen it yet because it hasn't come up. And teams are going to follow suit. Like if it's the ACC that gets only one team in and they leave out an 11-2 ACC runner-up, which is, in my opinion, preposterous, we'll see the SEC and the Big Ten probably get out of their contracts with Mercedes-Benz Stadium and Lucas Oil Stadium and just do away with conference title games. And it'll either be that or it'll be an injury that costs the team in the playoffs because they played what will become, and there's a lot of people that don't like this word, a meaningless conference championship game.
Yeah.
And that's what the playoff has created. The playoff has created meaningless college football games, whereas before the playoff, there was no meaningless college football games, which is why I don't like the expanded playoff. But
well, the ACC saw a meaningless conference championship game last year. Florida State, that was pretty much pointless of them playing that game because it didn't matter.
Exactly. But yeah, I think if they're both 11-1, they get in. But I still lean toward we're only going to see one ACC team in the playoff.
I can see it. All right, we got a caller on the line. That's good stuff there. Once again, let us know where you're calling from. Thanks so much for tuning in. You're on the Crowded Booth hotline. Let us know what your name is and where you're calling from.
This is Dr. Bob calling from East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana.
I love it. Just down the road. Dr. Bob. How you doing this evening?
I am doing well. I got done talking to my mother for her birthday, and so now I am free to call in and talk to you and our undefeated best bets picker,
Mr. Will defeated.
Most defeated. Dr. Bob, he said he's defeated. He said defeated. Not undefeated, but yeah, we get what you're saying. Will's 0-5, by the way, on best bets this season.
Man, that's lower than Mike Norvell right now. So we got to find a way. We got to go back to the Rutgers and the Iowa well in order to get that record back up.
I love it.
Problem
I
is,
love it.
Iowa can score points now.
Will said at least
So-
Iowa can score points, so there you go.
Yes.
So, Dr. Bob, what's on your mind this evening? We talking Georgia Tech. We talking big landscape of college football. Where you want to go with this?
I'm kind of, maybe kind of splitting the difference a little bit and talking about conference realignment with all of the stuff that's coming out with the Pac-12 in the past couple of days. And, obviously have one of my three schools is here in the American Conference in state. And they, along with three of their conference mates, decided to stay put in the American. And, want to get your take on, where you see the landscape of conference realignment. How long are teams like Stanford and Cal going to hang in there with the ACC? It seems like there's kind of a mad scramble right now in the sort of upper tier of the group of five and the lower tier of the Power Four to try and stay relevant as the SEC and the Big Ten seem to continue to pull away. And sort of, where do you see conference realignment going?
Yeah, I'll take this first, then I'll throw it over to Will. And like I said, Dr. Bobby, I know you won't be able to hear Will, but if you're watching the show, you will be. What a comment in the section. I'm not going to read that. But let's obviously, for the people who don't know, and Dr. Bob, you can correct me here. It was Tulane, Memphis,
South Florida, and UTSA.
And UTSA were all kind of made a public recommitment, I should say, to the American Conference after some rumors had emerged that the Pac-12 was extending offers. This to me is it's one of those things where this is a big win for the American Conference. I think I'll start with saying that. I think that this is a precursor, and this will make our mate that's not on the show tonight, but we're going to get him on the show later in the week. A precursor to maybe the Sun Belt and American having a marriage at some point down the road. I know that hasn't really been talked about, but I think that both of those conferences, especially the Sun Belt, are very strong in their TV rights deals, very strong in having the regional rivalry, especially in the Sun Belt. I mean, it's really unmatched right now. It's kind of this old guard of college football that they're living in the 2000s and we're in the 2020s. But then I also think it spells the end of the Pac-12 and this kind of I don't want to say renegotiation of what they were trying to do, because the Mountain West is flexing its muscles a little bit. I think that we're getting to a point where any hope of Oregon State and Washington State being able to garner that notoriety that they once had, I guess, part of being that Pac-12 shield. It might sound weird. I think the Pac-12's died again. So I'm going to hand it off to Will here. That's just kind of my thoughts, and we can dive more into that. But Will, kind of, what are your thoughts on that? Any differing viewpoints or anything you want to elaborate on?
Well, I just think that those four institutions that the Pac-12 went after from the American Conference make no sense for the Pac-12. I mean, these are schools that they're not the big brands. They don't bring in the money that the others do. So I don't know that they could literally, I don't think they could afford to be playing games on the West Coast multiple times during the year. I think if the Pac-12 is going to grow some more, I think that they should just marry up with the Mountain West altogether. Just basically add two teams in the Mountain West, and they can hash out a new name for the conference. I think. Well, it'll be those two, and then they'll have Gonzaga for basketball, so it's good for them for that conference anyway. But
yeah,
I really like what you said about the American and the Sun Belt coming together. But I think that would only happen if the bigger American programs got poached.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that, because like you said, I think the Sun Belt loves where they are and who they are. I don't think that they're looking to make any changes, which I respect and like a lot. They know who they are and they want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I think, and we'll go back to Dr. Bob here in a second. We still got him on the line. We just put you on hold there for a second. I think that until the programs that we saw, and we'll mention not the bigger brands, but I'm guessing I'm going to go with market. I mean, you have Tulane, you have New Orleans, you have Memphis, which is a decent market.
Tampa.
UTSA, regardless of that fact that I believe Jeff Traylor has stayed way too long, San Antonio is still a market in that sense. And then what was the fourth team, Will?
South Florida.
South Florida.
Tampa.
I mean, in Tampa. So, you have four markets that would be enviable. Um, I think that would make more sense, and this is just me personally, for the ACC to look at. Like, I think that
Absolutely.
those, I think that's going to be an ACC Big 12 battle because you have essentially a footprint with all four of those schools. Now, with obviously SMU and the ACC, you still have a footprint of, okay, you have SMU and UTSA down there. Tulane, you still have, obviously over there in Dallas. Memphis, okay, you're getting a little bit closer. And then USF, I mean, look, Miami and USF just played this past weekend, and USF's building a brand new on-campus stadium. It's supposed to be very, very nice. So I think that we're sitting in a scenario of where it's not over. I think, Dr. Bob, these are going to come in waves. And right now, the American Conference survived this next wave. I don't think the Pac 12, and here's my hot take. Maybe it's not a super hot take, but my take is that I don't think that the Pac 12, Dr. Bob, is going to be around when we talk about this next wave of conference realignment. I really don't think it's going to be a thing. And I will be interested to see what happens to Washington State and obviously Oregon State, because those are two programs that deserve, in my opinion, to be in a power conference. But they got left behind, and we'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I have some familial ties to Oregon State, and also some friends from medical school who went to Washington State. So I know that both of those are very proud institutions, long history, great academic institutions, large fan bases. Yeah, it's just the Pacific Northwest is a difficult place geographically to kind of be left out in conference realignment. And I think another question I have is, how long, does Cal and Stanford, how long is that marriage with the ACC? Because I just don't see that being a long-term viable option. I think it was Steve Dace who said that those schools would panhandle to get into the Big Ten. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm just, interested to see how things fall. It'd be nice to see all three of my schools, Tulane and Tech, and obviously Duke as well, all be in the same conference. That way I could have some games to go to. But I'll let y'all get on to some other callers tonight. Thanks for taking my call, Bryce. Hope you and Will, and obviously, condolences to Ralph for the family situation, but looking forward to shows later in the week, and I'm gonna have to drag you out to Ullman Stadium one of these days. So
Hey, it was a hot one in Lafayette the other day, and it was a hot one in Baton Rouge. I'm glad that I didn't make the trip down there anywhere this past weekend. It was 133 on the field at Tiger Stadium this past weekend. Nuts.
And they're having another 11 a.m. kickoff in Ullman Stadium this Saturday. I don't know what those people are thinking, so I'm going to go brave the elements.
Weekend, Dr. Bob?
What was that, Bryce?
Who's Tulane playing this weekend?
They're playing South Florida, so big conference game in the American that could decide the inside track for at least one of the two positions in the conference title game.
Well, Dr. Bob, I'm going to check my plans. LSU kicks off at 6 p.m. Can I make it back from New Orleans in time? We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, I'll get you a ticket. Don't worry.
Let's do it. All right. Appreciate you calling in, man.
Yep. Have a good night. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
We had another caller call in during that. Make sure you go ahead and hit that phone line once more. Look, if someone's currently on the phone, we can't answer the phone. It goes into kind of that waiting list.
Dr. Bob did ask what we thought about Stanford and Cal. How long would they stick around the ACC? That we didn't get to. That I think definitely depends on what the Pac-12 does. Like now that the Mountain West and Pac-12 are going to be in litigation, I think if those Mountain West schools make it to the Pac-12, Stanford and Cal are next. I mean, I do not see them sticking in the ACC. We can laugh about how they had ACC painted on their field for 1 year or 2 years, and it goes back to Pac-12. But I don't think Stanford and Cal are long for the ACC.
Especially if they win it this year and they play in the conference title game. That's going to be the biggest thing.
Stanford, they're what, tied for first?
Yeah, if Stanford and Cal make it to the conference title game, then it's time for the SEC to jump in and go cross-continental. That's what that is, right? Like, not would be transcontinental. I don't even know. I don't know what it is. That's something in history I didn't learn. All right, we're just going to call this person back. This is my favorite part of the show because this reminds me of like morning radio.
Hello?
Is this Ralph?
Yes.
Oh, hello, Ralph. What's up, brother?
Hi, guys. I know Will. I can't hear Will right now, but hi. I just want to call in and say thank y'all for everything. Family's doing well, and wanted to give a shout out to y'all. Thank y'all for everything y'all do and the words y'all said to me this week, and I really appreciate it, and so does my family. So, thank you.
Hey, tell Ralph I'll be there tomorrow. I'll see him tomorrow.
Ralph, Will said he will see you tomorrow.
All right, Will. I appreciate it, man. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
And Bryce, I have a surprise for you Thursday.
Oh.
It has something to do with Caribbean burn sauce. So.
He's bringing Hey, Ralph, I got a surprise for you, pal. We might be going I
heard
a double header on Saturday if you're down.
No, we're not. I refuse to be there in that stadium with him coaching for that team.
I get you. All right, brother.
I'll wear South Florida green. I don't care.
Are you watching the show currently?
I was.
Okay. Well, go ahead and pull the stream up right now.
Pull the stream up right now?
Yeah. Audio. Listener.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm out.
All right. Well, like we said, obviously prayers to Ralph's family. That's obviously hard and tough news, but prayers for him and his family, as obviously a big part of our show. So we'll we were talking with the conference realignment stuff. First off, folks, we're in season. We don't have to talk about conference realignment. We can talk about a lot of different things. I'm about to just start having a coughing attack right here in the middle of the show for some reason.
God.
It's been fine. It's terrible. Ralph says that he burned that koozie. Ralph is a closet arsonist. If you did not know that, it is what he is. I think we got a Vol fan on the line. As here we go. Let's open up the phone lines. What's your name? Where are you calling from, my friend? And I think I know who this is.
This is Sam Lord from Columbus, Georgia. So y'all talked about it earlier, talking about, you don't see a world where a runner-up in a conference championship game gets left out. However, since
only ACC to that. SEC and Big Ten, yes.
Yes. So kind of just like a general note or a general thought that I kind of had when y'all were talking about was thinking about, the weaker conferences. Like in the past, you've had Big Ten last year with Iowa if they get into the conference championship game, we all know that Iowa team was probably the third best team in the Big Ten last year. And there are conferences where that kind of happens, or maybe due to divisions, that occurs.
Yeah.
If we were to steer away from let's just say some crazy world, it happened in 2003 in the Big 12, a team with 3 losses, I think it was Kansas State, beat like a 1-loss Oklahoma. Is there a world where that 3-loss team then has a case because of their win in the conference championship game that allows them an avenue for the playoff? Because we were saying, or if they lose the game and they're the runner-up, is there an avenue for the playoffs to say, well, they made it there, or something like that? Because then we're talking about a realm where there are 3-loss teams. And I get it, it's kind of like a weird hypothetical, and it's happened, I want to say, it's probably happened a handful of times where we see a runner-up that is 2-loss, 3-loss, or somewhere in there, get into the conference championship game. Auburn did it in 17, and so if Auburn were to been the runner-up that year, would they have made the playoff or anything along those lines? What are the general thoughts on a 3-loss or 4-loss
runner-up
conference champion?
So, okay, let's take a step back here. And Will, you can educate me on this. The year Auburn went in 2017, which is kind of the example we're talking about right now.
Sorry, I had to wake up from my nap right there.
So that's great. The comment section's loving you, Sam.
Oh, I know.
This is the best one. The comment that says the election already happened during that question. Matt asked, "Do we write all that down?" So, the year in Auburn in 2017.
This is making my day.
Okay, so real quick, we'll answer this. In 2017, Auburn went into that title game 10-2, correct?
Yeah, and they were ranked number 2 in the country. If Auburn wins that game, they would have been the only 2-loss team to make the 14 playoff. So, and I think after the loss, they dropped to 6 or 7. So Auburn would have been in the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I think so. And Sam, I don't know if you're watching the show, so you're able to hear what Will said.
Yeah.
So I think so. It's going to take, and this, look, I mean, we might get called biased for this. It's going to have to be an SEC team. Like, it's going to have to be, like, here's a perfect example, okay? Georgia. Let's say Georgia rolls in. Let's say that they lose 2 out of 3 to Texas, Georgia, or let's say 2 out of the 4. Let's just play that to Texas, Georgia, or Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Then they face one of those 4 teams in the SEC title game, and they win, or I guess is that, or they lose again. There's going to be a legitimate argument for a 10-3 conference runner-up to win, to be in. And I the only thing, Sam, that I caution, which ESPN should have known this when they started the college ball playoff, was, do you want to see? God, Austin Bally says that question was to his worst nightmare. The only question I have to that, Sam, and I'll ask you back to it, is ESPN should have already known this when they made this happen, this 12-team playoff. But the biggest thing is do you want to see a matchup or potentially the matchup for the 3rd time in the first round? That to me is going to be the biggest thing. But obviously, the 12-team playoff, they don't care about that kind of stuff, and we know that they don't. I think it's going to have to be an SEC team in that situation. Like, I think, because I don't know of and Georgia just pops off of mind just knowing their schedule, because you could still say that they had the quality of wins. Of course, there's a scenario where you could literally have 6 3-loss teams, or 4 2-loss teams in the SEC, and I don't know. I think that the SEC is going to have to where it has to happen, because I don't know if the strength of schedule, with like what we were talking about earlier, I don't know that the strength of schedule is going to be enough for a team in the ACC or a team in the Big 12 to do it outside of that conference title game.
Yeah. It was just a question that popped in my head, knowing that there had been a history of runner-ups. I mean, the Big Ten's probably the other, like, big-time conference, knowing that there's a runner-up in the conference championship game that is not really going to have a case, or because they lose to a random Purdue team on a random Saturday, or they just don't have the offense to compete. That's kind of the other conference that pops into my head that would have the, that, let's say Oregon rolls in, they have 2 losses, they lose to Ohio State, they're a 3-loss team. What do you say about Oregon then? And that's probably the only other conference where I could see that happening, which then credits your point of moving away from conference championship games, because then we'd probably see, if the runner-up gets an automatic bid, we'd probably kind of see that runner-up be a little bit more accurate.
Here's a bonus question, and we can go into the next caller for this too. But I wanted to ask you this: what's it going to take in that scenario for a second G5 team to get in? Because we're sitting 5 weeks through the season. or I guess 4, but week 0 for obviously 4 weeks through the season, and you can make a case that there could be 1, 2, maybe 3 G5 teams that have a chance. Someone's going to be left out no matter what. But that's kind of that's where I sit with this of like Boise State. I know Will's sitting here, Army or Navy, who have shown to be not just Army and Navy, they're pretty good football teams. What would you say to that, Sam? Like, what's it going to take in your mind? Utter collapse from the P4 runner ups, multi-loss, because in that scenario, if you've got a 1-loss Memphis or a 1-loss Boise State and an undefeated, I don't know, I'd hate to say it, Liberty. That might, I don't know. I don't know how the committee is going to look at that in terms of what type of criteria is going to have to get in a G5, because we all just assume the G5 representative is going to be the 12 seed. Well, that might not happen. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think for second G5 to get in, I think it would have to be a 10 or 11, and then the 12 obviously is kind of the guaranteed. I think you're having to look at a pretty big collapse or a pretty significant drop off between conference champion and runner up, and then wherever these other bids get in. I would say it's probably not going to happen this year with the strength of the SEC. I think that there are definitely 4 teams that are going to that can all say like they can claim a stake. And I think in terms of other schools or other conferences, I think overall you're looking at probably a pretty big drop off significantly between the Big 12, Big 10, and ACC. I think you'd have to see a significant drop off, but even the Big 10 this year, with their top 2 being Ohio State and Oregon, I think that you're looking at probably the tightest, probably a pretty tight race between those 2. But the other 2 conferences, you could probably see a significant drop off, and you would need probably a 3-loss runner-up and another 3-loss runner-up that both lose, and they're 4 losses after the championship game, staring down the gun of undefeated American Conference, undefeated Sun Belt, and undefeated Mountain West. I think you're hard pressed to leave out 3 undefeated G5 conference champions.
So listen, I think that it brings up the comments section's on fire tonight. Good grief. Okay, so to your point, I think what would have to happen, and Sam, we appreciate you calling. We're just going to go ahead and hang up the phone. Thanks so much for calling, though, my brother. What I think would have to happen, in that scenario is, I think we missed a call from someone. No, we didn't. Make sure to get your call in real quick, Will. To what would have to happen? You'd have to have Notre Dame utterly collapse. You'd have to have the Big 12 and ACC only get 1 in, and you'd have to have the Big 10 to just get like 2 teams in, like 2, maybe 3, and then we'd have to have conversations from like a 9-3 Penn State and an 11-1 Boise State. You know what I mean? Like our 12-1 Boise State. I think that's what would have to happen. But I'm all over, and I know you said it. Talk about it real quick. You're here for the Army Navy game to you is going to be the national championship, and I think you're shutting your TV off and you're done watching college football for the year.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've watched this year of college football, those are the 2 best teams in the country.
They're good. They're good. They're very good. Make sure you get those calls in. Wow, that was wild. That was. And look, I like Sam. Sam's a good guy. I got
Sam
just
had his chance. Sam just had his chance and he blew it. I
think we answered the question. I'm not sure.
I don't think he knows what his question was.
Oh,
that's Pete. Pete's confused. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Got Pete Gate like.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'm not sure in the comments section.
He heard that rambling and he had to come figure out what was going on.
Clayton's on fire, by the way. Clayton, call in, my guy. Well, I wanted to ask. I mean, let's go back to this because this might spur up a little conversation.
Lost 4 lives
during that. I'm excited. I think to watch the rest of the season, just in terms of SEC and all that too. What's the number again, Clayton? It's on the screen, my guy.
He's still wondering. He's got
even Will's cat is. Rest in peace. P.2.0 is on the way. Okay, I believe this might be Clayton. This might be the guy who I don't know if we've ever had him call in before. All right, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Clayton Cooey, currently calling from Davidson, North Carolina.
Do you go to Davidson?
I do. I'm a student here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, first
Still
off,
big
I want to
Tech
I want a
fan.
two-parter here for you. First off, I'm going to ask you, what did you think of the previous caller and the length of that question?
You know, fascinating. It was fascinating. I mean, I actually finally grew out a mustache by then. You know, it took a while, but I lost track about after 10 seconds, but it was pretty interesting. Heard something about Oregon in there, something about Boise State, but yeah, super lost track of what was going on, but it was good to hear.
I got you. Well, let's get to your question. What you got for us tonight?
You know, to answer your question, I think 11-1 Boise State would make the champion or make the playoff, and then if you have a undefeated American Conference champion, I think that would also be very arguable to get in the playoff. Does Penn State? You mentioned Penn State being 9-3. Do they play Oregon this year? I mean, if they win, if they have a big loss to Oregon, that could really help Boise State have a better chance of getting.
I got you right here. So Penn State is playing Illinois this weekend, which actually is a top 20 game. UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, Minnesota, Purdue, and Maryland. So they do not, but it is a top 20 game against Illinois, and there is a top 15 game currently against USC. Then obviously that Penn State Ohio State matchup. So I mean, that's an interesting dilemma we could be facing in December.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I'd be able to watch. I think obviously fan favorite. If you could have an 11-1 Army team, I think people would not be happy if they missed the playoff. Like everyone would be calling for them. If people were so mad about Florida State missing, if Army were to miss the playoff, people it'd be 17-76 again probably. So I think it would people would at least want to see Army in the playoff. I had to think of any other teams. Are there any? Who's the best Sun Belt team right now? Does Sun Belt have an outside chance? I know Georgia Southern lost to Boise State, which hurt the odds.
Texas State had looked like the preseason, but they dropped a game to Arizona State. What Will says James Madison because of what they did to North Carolina, but
that's true.
That's no, yeah.
Is James Madison going to be an ACC team in the next 3 years?
Ooh, you know, that's an interesting question. I think and I'm going to answer, but kind of go around it. I think the ACC needs to look to the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt's going to be hard to break up. We talked about that earlier, but that's where you need to look, especially in those Carolina schools, because you got some talent, especially, and then obviously you have James Madison. You know, you have App State, North Carolina. I mean, you know, I think there's some talent for you to work with. I'd love to see App State in the ACC, just personally. You know, I think that'd be kind of fun to see what that program does there. I mean, this is not a popular. I know a lot of people don't like this program, but you know, Georgia State from an academic with a research background, and from a university standpoint, fits the mold of what conference realignment could look for, regardless of the stature of what you think their football program is. So interesting stuff. Outside of that, I couldn't see the ACC really looking elsewhere, but that's an interesting question. Will, any kind of thoughts on James Madison, ACC team?
They feel like an ACC team. I'll say that. I think they would work.
Yeah, I think it could be very interesting. All right. Well, any questions about your Yellow Jackets there, Clayton?
What do you think? If you had to guess, what's the main focus during this bye week for the team to improve on?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think.
Do we run the ball or do we finally let them pass?
I like it. We're gonna hang up because we want to be able to get more callers. Now, Will and I are going to talk about that. Appreciate you calling in, Clayton.
All right. Thank you.
Well, let's talk a little bit of that. I mean, I know you don't I know you're watching Georgia Tech, in passing, kind of less than I am a little bit, but in the bye week, I think the biggest things that we've identified that Georgia Tech has to utilize is they've got to figure out the run game. Because this is a group that led the ACC in rushing last year. I don't, I, and Will, you can look up the stat if you want to. Uh, I don't think they're even in the top half of rushing in the ACC, and I might be wrong in that. I could be completely wrong in that, but I don't think they are. So you got to figure out a way to run the ball because you can't just throw Haynes King out there and try to win every single game with him. That's not a way to win, and it would be a waste of Haynes King. What a lot of people think could be his final year in college football, and especially on that team. And then I think the other thing is just the miscues, and Matt says it right here: not make stupid mistakes. Clean up special teams. Aiden Burr, the kicker, who has a leg, he's been not very good, and you got to figure that out too. So that's something that's going to be just special teams, clean some things up. I will say this defensively. Will, we talked about this with LSU. We talked about this with Auburn the other day. I do not think. I don't know how much more you can get out of this defense. It's going to have to be coaching, and they're going to have to execute at a super high level because nobody else is walking through that door. That's kind of been the mantra of this week of people talking about it. So you have to reset. This team deserves a bye week after just 5 straight weeks of just in college. I mean, it's crazy. I think traveling to Ireland, coming back, playing on a short week, traveling to Syracuse, you get a de facto bye against VMI, okay, but then you travel to Louisville. I mean, you've played 4 physical football games in 5 weeks. So any thoughts, Will, like just in terms of a bye week, like things you think that these conversations are happening, maybe not specifically for Georgia Tech, but just in general you think happen?
Well, first I looked up the rushing numbers. Georgia Tech is 9th in the ACC in rushing, which it's worse than it sounds because they played more games than any other team in the ACC. They played 5 games. Nobody else has played more than 4. So that's a big concern. This should be a team that can run the ball. But if Georgia Tech is going to make some more noise and make another bowl game like they did last year, Pete's just sabotaging the show tonight.
Just all over the place.
If they're going to make some noise, make another bowl game, win another bowl game, I think we're going to have to see a big improvement from the defense. And it's a big bye week for Tyler Santucci. He's had 5 games to evaluate what he's got, and try to figure out better ways to call it and put his guys in positions to make plays and improve.
Yeah.
Which was why the Florida State game was really such a shock. I mean, of how well they played on defense, because it's like you've got a lot of new parts on that side of the ball. What's it going to look like?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I mean, and to your point, I mean, obviously the shine off of that win has dampered a little bit. I think for not just Georgia Tech fans, but across the country. But it's still hard. I mean, we talk about going on the road, going across the pond and doing that is still difficult.
I'll say this: I've made our Georgia Tech viewers mad enough. They'll like this. What Florida State's done hasn't changed how I feel about Georgia Tech. I don't think the shine is lost for me.
Hear it, people. Hear it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, Florida State is bad, but again, on paper, they were a team everybody thought would just push Georgia Tech around, and Georgia Tech showed that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Now they struggled on the road, but like you said, it's been a very, very hard 5 weeks to start the season. We could see Georgia Tech come shoot out of a cannon off this bye week and just, roll over teams the rest of the year. I think Georgia Tech is one of the more physical teams in the ACC. That's why the running numbers are such a conundrum to me. But, I think there was some fatigue that sat in, and that was why Louisville before the bye week was always going to be tough.
Yeah. You mentioned shooting out of a cannon. You get Duke, North Carolina, and then you play Notre Dame. You have to win
those first two are definitely winnable.
Well, and I think they are must wins in terms of maybe bowl game. I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule. I know Virginia Tech has been impressive, but you're going to have to go up there. That's not going to be easy. Then obviously you look at NC State. I think you can win that game at home a Thursday night. They're terrible, but I don't know. Jonesy says Will needs to be drug tested. I don't know, man. You gotta beat Duke, and you have to beat Duke, and you have to beat North Carolina. That puts you at 5-2. Will, if we would have said through 7 games, and remember, we'll bring it up. What did Vegas say about this team? So 7 games, they're 5-2. They've already hit the win total.
They've already hit the win total. And we said it in the offseason when we were looking at win totals, what Vegas thought. We're like, how is Georgia Tech only at 5? I mean,
Yeah.
they certainly look to be a better team than they were last year, and they won 6, 7 with
Yeah.
the bowl game, and we thought that they would be better. And in a lot of ways they have been better, in other ways they haven't been. But like I say, the fatigue, the travel schedule. Dr. Bob mentioned the travel schedule in the comments. It's been a brutal first 5 weeks, brutal. But they've got to come out of this bye week, get momentum. Duke off this bye week is a really good draw for Georgia Tech. I think that's a very winnable game. I have not really liked what I've seen out of Duke. Obviously they lost a lot, but it's good to get back into the swing of the schedule coming off the bye week. They own North Carolina. North Carolina is a mess in a lot of ways. If Georgia Tech drops that game, I mean, I still think Georgia Tech's better, and it's not same old Georgia Tech, but we're gonna say same old Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And I know Georgia Tech has owned North Carolina, but that's like a typical game for Georgia Tech to drop.
You mentioned that too. Duke and North Carolina play this weekend. The perfect chance for people to kind of scout and see what they're going to say.
Yep.
Nancy says, "Love that Duke is a night game as well." That's also too. A remark, but we're going to take this this. Here. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello,
Bryce.
hey, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Glenn from Rome, Georgia. How you doing?
Doing well, my man. How are you doing this fine evening?
Doing good. Couple of questions. I know Tech has some issues on defense and all of that, but just want your opinion on Buster's, the variety of his play calling. I don't think they've gotten the best. I understand the running backs, the running game is struggle, but the passing game could be unbelievable. I mean, you got 2 tight ends that can catch, get on down the field.
Yeah.
Then I think I heard you say the other day about getting Haynes the ball out in space. I mean, they got so much they could do with that passing game, but it appears, is it Buster or is it Key? It's like they're struggling, moving the ball down the field. In addition to not being able to run it, I think they could really pass it.
Yeah, I mean, and Glenn, thanks so much for calling. I think that the biggest thing with it, and look, this is maybe kind of, I don't want to sound too basic here, but the lack of a run game, which I go back to on Twitter, GT South Recruiting, he said this: the guard center guard combination. I'm not saying personnel wise it's not working. They just haven't produced like they should. They have not executed like they should, and so I think it goes hand in hand a little bit, Glenn. So the inability to run the football has not opened up the pass game as much. Now, to your point, and you correct me if I'm wrong, what you're kind of saying is why not just pass the ball? To me, and we talked about this in the preseason, I don't think that you can put Haynes King in a situation where he throws the ball 35, 40, 45 times a game. I don't think that's his play style. I don't think that's necessarily what makes him the best version of himself, if that makes sense. And I could be wrong. I'm not in the practice. I'm not looking at cutting up the film every single day. Just from what I've seen over the course of his career, and especially since he's been in Atlanta, I don't think that suits him the best. So if you do that, you're also telling the defense that, hey, now we're not going to run the ball. You can drop 8 in coverage. And that's where I think we could see the turnover bug kind of rear its ugly head, because one of the things that's been impressive, Glenn, is that he has not really turned the ball over all that much. Obviously, he had the bad play, which, look, Haynes King's been the best player on the Georgia Tech team through 5 games. That play on Saturday where he gets batted down into the end zone, that's a terrible play. He knows it. Key knows it. Faulkner knows it. Winky knows it. Everybody knows it. But kind of going forward into this, if you sell out to say we're going to pass the ball, my concern would be, well, is that putting the best version of King on the field? Because I think the best version is what we saw at times last year, like to your point, was where everything is working off of one another and it keeps the defense on its toes. I mean, heck, it kept Georgia on its toes for 50, 60 minutes on that game last season. So I don't know. That's kind of where I sit with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it just feels that the offense is stagnant at times. You can't tell me they couldn't have done, had a little bit more variety to get those first downs late in the game other than running it. I mean, you could have had number 8, cross, that's just so much more, even with Singleton. And I was even thinking about Singleton. I'm not a pessimistic person, but I think the best days of Tech is ahead.
Yeah.
Do you think that Singleton touches the ball enough? It kind of reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs, even with Collins, like you knew you had something, and I understand they struggled. The next thing you know, he was gone.
Yeah.
And Singleton, is some of the big schools going like, man, we'll get you the ball, we'll let you touch it 10 or 12 times a game, and we can look back at that and say, you know what? I know he played well Saturday, but sometimes he doesn't even get the ball enough.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this to that. I think that this team has the skill players. Like I'll just say this: I think this team has the skill players to win the ACC. When you look at what they have 2 bona fide receivers. They've got a guy in Avery Boyd who I have been begging for this team to use for the past 3 seasons. And I like the way they utilized him on that pass up the seam, Glenn. Like I really liked that. So you have weapons. To your point, you got to get them the football. And your job as an offensive coordinator is not to, well, we're trying. I know we're struggling. Great great offensive coordinators, great coordinators in both sides of the football. The great ones can scheme up despite deficiencies. And that's what I think we're going to learn about Buster Faulkner. Is he just a okay to good, offensive coordinator that, look, it was last year, we need to be honest, it was a Tech team by surprise. That's what it was. Now that everyone knows what you want to do, they know who Eric Singleton is. They know who Malik Rutherford. They know that Haynes King is not the quarterback that he was in College Station. I think that's something that we're going to have to really kind of look at, because this year too, and I talked about this, when teams make adjustments, now you're going to really learn how good of an OC is, and that's going to be my biggest question. But Glenn, we got another call on the line. I appreciate you calling, man. Stay tuned because we're going to be doing this every single Tuesday night.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, if you just called in, make sure that you get that call in right there. Will, I know that was kind of more of that, but just kind of your thoughts on great OCs, great DCs scheme the deficiencies. Answer that one before we get this one.
Exactly right.
Exactly. We're going to keep the phone lines open. I think we might have just hit the stride here. All right, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Daniel from Lawrenceville, Georgia. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Daniel. How are you doing this fine evening?
Hey, I just
Thanks first.
in the Braves beat the Mets. Fingers crossed. Looks pretty good so far. But a couple things you kind of mentioned before about not
Haynes to throw 35
times a game. Well, I mean, he threw 30
times this last game. And it a little bit seemed out of necessity, a little bit seemed out of it was what was working.
The thing that bothers me
is caller talked about getting Haynes out in space.
I know Haynes is a little banged up, but if you can't, being creative with a yard to go.
Yeah,
you want to try to run it up the middle. I mean, you're talking about maybe you put Zach Pyron in, you let him throw the ball for a yard. Like people are not expecting him to throw out of that formation. Maybe you let him do that. But it seems to me, like you've mentioned before, they're not letting Haynes be Haynes King, mind you, be Haynes King. And, if you're not going to let the guy let loose when you can't run, then what are you doing?
Yeah. No, that's that's fair.
You know,
I mean, no,
what
that's
your
fair.
thoughts on that are.
And I'll say this to your point, and we appreciate you calling in. I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about that because thanks so much for calling in. So to that point, like we've talked a lot about this, guys. Have we not? Like this is a this is a quarterback situation where I said this all off season, and Will, you've seen this across college football. If you have uh
Here, I'll talk while you try to figure out what you're going to say
yeah,
because
just that
that was a lot going on.
it was a lot.
As far
It was
as
a lot going on. And seriously, Daniel, we appreciate you calling it. We couldn't quite hear your whole question. It was not.
right,
It was just
as
yeah. We
as
couldn't
far
quite
as
hear.
you know, it sounded like he was asking a couple things about play calling. You know, Zach Byron has a short yardage or running package. You don't want him to throw because you don't want to overthink things, right? There's and if you overthink it and let him throw and it doesn't work out, you look dumb. You're like, why is then you'd be asking, why is Pyron even throwing the ball? Just let him run. So you don't want to overthink things, especially when you need a yard or half a yard, you know. Um, Two, Haynes King, you say they're not letting him be Haynes King. Turnovers were such an issue last year. I think, you know, knowing that they're better collectively as a unit, a better football team. I'm not even looking at the comments. Bryce is just losing it. So I gotta get through this and then I can read them. I think Buster Faulkner and the coach and the offensive staff is kind of protecting Haynes King. They also know that if Haynes King gets hurt, they're in a lot of trouble offensively. Pyron does get in there and run, but you lose the passing game. I think a lot with Pyron in there. So I think they're trying to protect him. They're trying to protect the ball, which is why it's been a struggle because running the ball has not been great for Tech so far. I keep getting distracted by Bryce just losing it. Bryce is having to get up and walk away because the comments are so on fire. Um, but you know, I haven't watched enough of Georgia Tech. I watched them play. I watched them, you know, kind of sleepwalk through that Georgia State game. We were lucky enough to be at that game. Let's see what are y'all talking about? When are we gonna have a non-football call-in show so we can where we can't rant in the comment section? Oh my goodness. Brennan Simpkins asks, "Is Bryce okay?" No, Bryce is not okay. Um, Having to get up and walk off, Bryce is not okay. Also,
Right, can you hear me now?
it must be somebody's bedtime if Bryce is putting in the AirPods.
It is. It is. All right. Kind of going back to that. No, Will, you mentioned this. I mean, the idea of Haynes King, letting him be Haynes King, resulted in him being one of two players to do it. Him and Jaden Daniels. It also resulted in 16 turnovers. You know, you can't do that. Wow, that was wild. That was wild. um, but I think there is a legitimate question to be asked. Is this? We appreciate you, Daniel. Daniel says my earbuds were in my pocket. And my phone kept switching to them. Sorry, Daniel. It's fine. It's more
Hey,
people commenting. That
my AirPods do that all the time too. It's so annoying.
no, you're
So
good.
yeah, been
Kind
there.
of ending. All love, Daniel. Kind. What a great show. Get your last second phone calls in because we're about to end this thing. But golly, just if you let Haynes,
Good Lord.
if you let Haynes King be Haynes King, I think that you'd have to live and die with the good and the bad that comes with that. So far this season, he's been good. This offense hasn't been explosive. They have to be able to run the football. Well, just bottom line. If they don't, then yeah, they don't. That's it. Anyone want to call in? Is that all? Yeah. Dave,
Hopefully,
he'd rather live with the bad.
you could, but I kind of feel like you spin your wheels a little bit if you're choosing to live with the bad.
God, I thought we were going to get out of here. We'll have to tell the show on after if they gotta. All right, thanks so much for calling. You're here. We appreciate you. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Are you calling from the?
Hey there.
It sounds like this person's calling from the wing of an airplane.
Well, it's calling from the wing of a Jeep Liberty, so I guess if that counts. But
Okay.
this is just originally from sport. That's kind of like you grew up watching the show for the past few months. You know, not enough Georgia Tech content out there, so you got to get that up. One of the few Tech fans left, I guess. And kind of like you, I grew up really a Bulldog, and then switched over when I realized I had family ties to Tech. So I guess there's that. But what do you think, like Brent Key can do, you know, to better improve his game management skills? Because I feel like this season in particular, you know, when it comes to, you know, calling timeouts, and it comes to like, you know, specifically managing the clock, not as much play calls, because I know some of that goes more so, especially on the offensive side with Buster Faulkner. But what do you think that Key can do to really improve in terms of game management and really trying to put the team in the best position to win?
All right, I'm going to answer this, and then I'm going to let Will answer it. I know you won't be able to hear Will, but I'll just let you know when he's done talking. So this might sound overtly simple. He's just got to coach. He just needs more time. Like I don't think that you can replicate scenarios like that until you've actually been in them. You can have advisors on your staff. And that's why Will said, like, one of the biggest things for Dell McGee at Georgia State is having Hugh Jackson as a special advisor. Like, maybe that's something that he
GM.
does. Yeah. You know, maybe that's something he does. But other than that, I think it's just coaching in more games. And this is just the growth of a young head coach. So I hope that's not too simple of an answer for you, but I kind of think that's where it is. He just has to coach more, and he's gonna learn those things. Will, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. See, I don't even know the answer to this. Jeez. Tech, they've got an analytics guy, right? They got the dude walking around with the massive binder. You know, Brent Key should lean on him more. I mean, figure out what the numbers say in the situation and just go with the numbers. Don't, you know, he's definitely going out there and most decisions he's making just with gut feeling, which, you know, understandable. But sometimes you got to go with the numbers, and I think he might need to do some more of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. So yeah, that's kind of where we sit with that. And I know you weren't able to hear him. Will said just kind of continue to surround himself with guys who have been in that position before. And my answer is just he has to keep coaching. I mean, I think for a lot of people who were really excited about this season, you also had to be able to see some of the potential shortcomings and potential pitfalls. And one of them was that, hey, this is a new head coach still. I mean, this is a guy who's still relatively young into doing this. He had some great mentors, but it's different when you're the guy calling the shots. So
Right. No, I'm in complete agreement with you on that one. I mean, it is a pretty simple answer. It just takes time to get there, and surrounding himself with the best staff that he can get. Let's just hope that JBAT can help him do that in terms of funding and money. That will help a lot. But no, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Great content, and roll tide, Will.
oh man. Oh brother. Thanks for calling, brother. Did you hear that?
I can't say what I want to say. Sorry, I can't hear crap today.
Crazy.
Jonesy, what does this mean? Walks off short piers? What does that mean?
I think it just walks straight to the wall.
What is
Okay.
I love long walks off short piers. What does that mean?
We've gone last question for Will here. Aaron, he gets the text question of the night. Does Auburn lead the nation in interceptions thrown?
Yeah, Auburn leads the country in turnovers.
Really?
Yes, or they're 131st out of 132. It's awful.
Is it a short pier, a dock? It might just be.
Gavin, you opened yourself up. Let's see if Jonesy makes the joke. I'm sure it's coming.
All right. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Every single Tuesday night, we'll be doing this from 7:30 to around 8:30ish. We appreciate it. It's Jonesy's allowed to call in. He's a grown man. He can do whatever he wants. Hank Brown might need a long walk off the short pier. What's
Clayton, you have been on fire tonight.
You have been commenter of the night. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks so much for watching. It is it's crazy. We appreciate everyone calling in. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth. Tomorrow night, live 7:30 as we preview week number 5.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.